Can I have your attention, please? As you are all aware, at this time of the day, while we eat and enjoy ourselves, we also have other kinds of activities we'd like to share. Thank you all again for being with us today, for enjoying the workshops that we have, and I hope we're going to see you this afternoon. But first on our agenda, I would like to bring up Director Polly Donaldson from the Office of the Department of Housing and Community Development, who is here to bring greetings from our mayor, Muriel Bowser. Polly.
Thank you and good afternoon. Good afternoon. Ah, there we go. All right, thank you. I am here on behalf of Mayor Bowser, who could not be here today, but she sent her housing team, and we just had a fabulous panel that talked about all the housing resources that we have here in the district as we look to build, produce, and preserve more affordable housing. It was very clearly the mandate. First, though, I want to thank Johanna Shreve, the Office of Tenant Advocate, her entire team, because again, you've got a full house and doing a great job. And it's really great to be here because all that we are doing in terms of housing and all is possible because we're all working together across the city. And of course, I've got from our the council of the district, our chair, Phil Mendelson. I do know who is here, as well as other council members. I know the chair of the housing committee, Anita Bonds, is here. Yes. I know Councilmember Nadeau and Councilmember Che are here as well from wards 1 and 3. And I do know that that the mayor and her commitment to housing and affordable housing, the mandate that I was given to do more with our housing resources. You know about the $100 million a year that the mayor has put in her budget and the council has approved every year for the Housing Production Trust Fund. That is what is going to help increase the supply of housing overall, because we have to ensure for our affordable housing that we have housing for the population increase. We've grown by 100,000 over the past 10 years, and we know that we need to continue to invest resources. So in terms of production and in terms of preservation, where the mayor has also created a preservation fund that is leveraging private resources to preserve our existing affordable housing as well. These are priorities. It's also a priority in terms of how we are working on tenants' rights in terms of our signature program, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, the TOPA law, and I can tell you that there's a parallel law, the District Opportunity to Purchase Act, that is the final regulations will be published in October this month, and we will then be able to implement that, where the district can come and be able to preserve where the tenants are not necessarily able to purchase. So that really is a critical piece. You know, actually, Mayor Bowser says it very simply in terms of this. And it's really about establishing roots. Now, whether you've been here 5 generations like she has, or whether you're relatively new to the city and you want to establish roots, the fact is doing that and having adequate housing across all of our neighborhoods and adequate affordable housing are absolutely critical. We just finished a Roots to Roofs Housing Week, where we had groundbreakings, ribbon cuttings on senior housing, on the Grand Families at Plaza West, right off of 3rd Street, for all of the affordable housing that we have been looking to build. We have home ownership developments that are especially created to allow low and moderate income families and individuals to buy a home in the district as well. We are celebrating senior housing. On Monday, we will be groundbreaking at Delta Towers at Florida and Benning Road, with specifically preserving that existing senior housing and producing more. That is where those dollars are going. That is where our investments are. And I will tell you right now that we've had success since 2015. developing over 6,000 units. We have another 5,000 units of affordable housing in construction right now. And I can tell you the mayor's already set a goal going forward, and it's actually adds another digit there. So it's 10,000 additional units that will be developed over the next 4 years. So I can tell you that the idea of doing more with all the tools in our toolkit, that to do that, to protect the rights of tenants, to protect those who have been here for very long, and also help those who are moving here to be able to live in the district. So again, I thank you, Johanna. This is really terrific, and thank you all. And I look forward to engaging with you over the course of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Polly. Thank you for bringing such a great... Well, unfortunately, this is not the Q&A session. What I can say in response to your question, affordable is defined by many, many different factors. It's defined by the financing of the deal, how the deal is financed, who can afford it. If we're talking about low and very low income housing, it is a focus of this administration. When I talk about low and very low income housing, we're talking about from 30 to 60% of the area median income. There are a variety of ways to look at affordable, and so offline we can continue this question and answers, and hopefully we can give you something that will satisfy you. At this time, however, I would also like to inform the body that we have with us today the chairman of the City Council, Phil Mendelson. He has come to address this group. This is a gentleman who has experience as a former tenant. This is a man who has experience as a former activist. This is someone who brings a message to the tenant community. So let us give a very warm applause to Chairman Phil Mendelson.
Thank you, Jana. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here again. I'm going to acknowledge my colleagues, Mary Che, who was sitting in the back, Brianne Nadeau, who seems to be working the room, so she's there, but she was there, and Anita Bonds, who's somewhere. Right there, front and center. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being here. I got to tell you that many, many years ago, I was very active with my tenant association before, unfortunately, we went through a conversion. So I'm talking about a few decades ago, and there was never an event like this, bringing tenants together, and there was not an office of the tenant advocate or a chief tenant advocate. And tenants really were struggling how they would organize on their own and then work with other tenant associations across the city. So it's really very different today, and that's a good thing. I want to kind of build on what Polly Donaldson was saying, because when we talk about rent tenants and we think about rent control, we're talking about a bigger problem in our city, and that's affordable housing. And affordable housing is a real challenge in Washington, D.C. But what many of us don't see is that it's actually a challenge in cities across the country. We are not unique in this affordability crisis. And some of the things we're doing, we are unique in the sense that we're doing more of it. For instance, Polly mentioned the Housing Production Trust Fund, the mayor's commitment to $100 million a year, which the council has supported and from year to year sometimes been able to increase it a little bit. The $100 million that we're putting into the Housing Production Trust Fund dwarfs what any other city is doing. And I see that at-large Councilmember Alyssa Silverman just came in. Good afternoon. The Housing Production Trust Fund is intended to be used to protect existing affordable housing as well as generate the new construction of additional housing, affordable housing. Somebody said, what is affordable? Affordable is a percentage of the area median income. It can be whatever we want that percentage to be, and we actually have 3 gradations, which is something like 30% and below AMI. So when we say 30% or below area median income, for, if I remember correctly, for something like a family of 4, that's earning $25,000, maybe $30,000 a year, maybe. I think it's actually lower than that. So we're talking about low-income folks. And then there's 50% AMI and 80% AMI, and 80% is roughly what workforce housing, meaning firefighters, teachers, that level of income. So those are the different categories or bands that we're striving to build more affordable housing as well as to preserve existing affordable housing. The Housing Production Trust Fund is probably our biggest tool, but there are other tools. The Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, the ability of tenants to be able to exercise that right of purchasing their apartment building and to maintain it as affordable to them. Inclusionary zoning, a 10% set aside for low-income folks. Emergency rental assistance and local rent supplement program. Taxes, including the Schedule H on your income tax. If your income is below $50,000, you can apply with your income tax for a refund, even if you don't pay taxes. It's a refundable credit. It's meant to make housing more affordable in the city for low-income renters. As well as the senior citizen property tax credit. Our dispositions of land, again, I'm kind of going through this pretty quickly, but it speaks to the different tools that we have in place to try to preserve and increase the supply of affordable housing. And with dispositions, we're now setting aside a minimum of 20% and typically 30% or more for low-income or extremely low-income apartments. So take like a project at St. Elizabeth's campus along Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, where, if I remember correctly, the set-aside for affordable housing, which will be extremely low-income, is something like 80% of the units. So these are all different tools. But the challenge is that this city is growing at about 1,000 people a month, 12,000 people a year, and the construction of housing is not keeping pace with that, which is why we're seeing the costs go up. There's a bill before the council on Tuesday that's getting some news, and that has to do with the short-term rental housing like Airbnb. And what we're trying to do is to limit, what I'm proposing is that we limit those short-term rentals to somebody's primary residence, meaning owners, their primary residence, like their basement or a room, an extra room in their house, rather than additional units that they might have, like a second house they might have. And the value in that to you all is that means that those properties are available for lease. They're available for rent. That means that it's another way of trying to increase the supply of housing. Because what we have seen, and some of you know this, is that like the Airbnb, somebody comes in and they get unit after unit after unit in an apartment building, and pretty soon that entire apartment building is Airbnb. And those are apartments that are not available to tenants. So it's another way that we're trying to increase the supply of rental housing for folks in the city. And then I kind of left out, but maybe I touched on it, and another important tool in affordability here is maintaining rent control and ensuring that the rent control that we've had in this city since 1971 or 1972 continues to be in existence to help tenants to be able to afford to live in their homes. Thank you so much, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, Chairman Mendelson, for those kind words. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the City Council. It used to be when we did the Tenants Summit in the beginning, we would invite them to come in the morning and they would all give us 3 or 4 minutes of their time to almost say the same thing. I thought that it was even more important for us to ask them to commune with us during the lunch hour. Food has a way of broaching hostilities. It has a way of allowing people to, well, I did say that. It has a way of allowing us to come together as a family of people with the same kinds of thoughts, asking for new solutions to very similar problems. And so I would also like to acknowledge the council, Mary Che, Anita Bonds, Ms. Nadeau, Alyssa Silverman. These are women and men who work very hard on behalf of every citizen in the city. But as I said this morning, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference if you don't show up when the hearings come. They want to see you in the House. They want to hear from you about your personal experiences. They want to know whether or not the statutes that they create, that the legislation that is enabled, the regulations that become the implementary guidance are actually carrying out the commitment and the wishes of this government. So I appeal to all of you. As I said, why do tenants come together? Is it because we want to see what we're wearing? Is it because we want to hear what someone else has to say? Or is it because it is not always in the losing, but in the winning of commitment and commemoration of activities that we all come together? And with that note, I now want to move to the presentation of awards. Several years ago, we decided that we would begin to acknowledge individuals and organizations who had made a contribution to the tenant fight. Today, it is my esteemed honor to ask Juanita McKenzie, who has been nominated as this year's Tenant of the Year, to join me. Juanita gave me her bio, and it's in my purse. So I'm going to talk about Juanita McKenzie from the standpoint that I know her. First, it took me 4 days to find her. And it took me 4 days because she had been sent on a journey by some other nonprofit who had recognized her talents, her commitment, her activism. She is a mainstay in her apartment community. She is a mainstay at the town hall every year. She is here to talk and to rally tenants around the ideas to be heard. And those are the ingredients that we look at when we are trying to decide who really deserves this award. She is a woman who has a great deal of humor. Someone, even when she's down, stands up. Someone who has a voice that is as sweet as an angel's to convince some politician to give her some money. And even when she is disappointed and doesn't get what she thinks her community deserves, she continues to fight on. For that, Juanita, you are the Tenant of the Year. Let's get that picture. Thank you.
Oh no, my glasses.
You need glasses? She's looking for reading glasses. All right. Be careful.
I'm telling my age. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First, I want to thank God for blessing me with a mind and spirit to do work for my community. I have been blessed with great opportunities in my quest to advocate for affordable housing for the minority, physically challenged, seniors, veterans, single head of households, low-income children, native Washingtonians, such as myself. I give voice to many who are unable to speak when I testify before the D.C. City Council to make sure funding is provided for affordable housing in the mayor's budget every year. And I will not stop advocating for my people in the city of Washington, D.C. I want to thank OTA for this award. I have to thank some special people who supported me by way of education, motivation, exposure, and opportunities to grow. And I wanted Johanna to read about me because I have been written up in the Washington Post. I have been on WPFW, in the Washington Afro-American newspaper. And I want to say that advocating for affordable housing is near and dear to me. And I want to say that I have to thank Polly Donaldson because it was a long, hard fight, but my building, I'm the president of the Tenant Association at 930, 940, 960 Randolph Street. The city council members are familiar with me very well. And I have to say that I'm very proud with the hard work that tenants in DC do to advocate for affordable housing. And my 3 buildings, we received $8.4 million from the Housing Production Trust Fund. Yay. That was in my bio. I want to thank OTA for this award. I have to thank some special people who supported me by way of education, motivation, exposure, and opportunities to grow. And I have to thank LEDC who did send me to Boston last month to study with a nonprofit of 45 years. And we think that DC has a housing crisis, but it's going on throughout the United States. And it was great for me to be able to study with these people who have started from grassroots level, who are still functioning today, and they're very militant. The fight for prevention of evictions and affordable housing. And I was honored to be able to study with them. There was also financial support that was given to me. I have to thank Linda Leaks, Dolores Anderson, Johanna Shreve, attorneys Joel Cohen and Dennis Taylor, Jim Graham, Marion Berry, and Robert Pullman, and so many others that helped to shape me into who I am today in this field, and I am grateful. OTA, continue to do the great work that you are doing for all the residents of the District of Columbia.
All right, now I'm going to do something that's probably unheard of. I'm not going to sing. I'm going to call up 2 gentlemen. And the next award that I will be presenting is called the Unsung Hero Award. The 2 gentlemen that I would like to take the stage with me at this time are Timothy Handy and Jose Suero. As these gentlemen walk to the stage, I'll just tell you a small story about them. Mr. Handy was the first chief tenant advocate. Probably didn't know that. But he served as the interim chief tenant advocate for the District of Columbia from the time the legislation was passed until I arrived. And when I came on board, he said, "Sister, I am so glad to see you, because I am really tired of going to tenant meetings." By trade, Mr. Handy is an attorney. He had other functions, was working from the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs at the time, but he had taken on this task. He didn't know what he was taking on, but he took it on anyway. In addition to he, there was another gentleman that had been assigned from the mayor's office to the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs. His name is Jose Suero. Jose was fast-talking, fast-moving, had been working in all kinds of areas, had been in the newspaper business, knew the community better than anyone, particularly the Latino community, a native of Spain, a gentleman who had a distinguishing background, had gone to a great school. Father was a great diplomat in the Kennedy administration. He brought a great thing and a great number of tools to the kit. And someone said to him, "You're going to be moved to the office of the tenant advocate." He had no idea what that meant either. And neither did the people who had constructed the legislation. They didn't know. They just knew we need an office of the tenant advocate. So here I come walking in on April the 18th of 2006, and I have these two distinguished gentlemen to work with me. And of course, what they didn't know, that I had been a tenant in the National Tenant Association, that I had shut HUD down at one point, that I was a rebel rouser without any standing, had marched with Martin, had done all kinds of things, and most people didn't know that when they interviewed me. So we went to our first meeting together at Sacred Hearts Church. I'm going to tell your story. You can tell your story. Yeah, you can. Yeah. You can tell the story too. So we get to this church, and we're dealing with an organization that has great political influence in the city. And they say, well, this is what needs to happen, and this is what needs to happen. I said, I don't think so. We're going to do this. And I started asking that question and this question. And all of a sudden, these guys said, oh, my God, who did they hire? Time has gone on. Jose worked with my office for a better period of 5 or 6 years. He traveled many roads with me, many apartment buildings, many building-wide inspections. Many things occurred and happened. And the friendship that developed between the two of us, I can't even begin to talk about. Timothy Handy, on that instance, after I came on board, he went on back to doing what he was doing. But despite all of that, he had kept articulate records about all of the meetings he had attended, all of the tenants that he had met, all of the issues that lay there before me. These are two gentlemen who have fought for tenant rights, and nobody even knew they existed. These are two gentlemen who today, when they walked in this room, most of you say, who are they? These are two of the memories of the Office of the Tenant Advocate. These are two of the legacies of the Tenant Advocate. So it is with my great pleasure that, Tim, I present you with this award. And that's you, my friend, Jose Suero. Thank you. It's now your turn, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. My name is Timothy Handy, and as history will record, Ms. Shreve was the first tenant, the chief tenant advocate recognized. But in fact, I was the first chief tenant advocate of the District of Columbia based on the legislation. I have a lot of fond memories from that time. The first thing I want to do is to ask you guys to give a round of applause to the outstanding Office of the Tenant Advocate as it now exists. I'm going to keep my remarks brief. So, I'm not sure if the district knew what they had done when they hired Johanna Shreve, but it didn't take Jose and myself long to figure out exactly who was in charge and exactly what was going to get done. And when the tenant advocate, the Office of the Tenant Advocate, I smile every time I say that now because it's a standalone agency. So there are a couple of things that are very important. When the office was created originally, it was actually under the auspices of the Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs. It didn't take Ms. Shreve long to realize that she needed independence to really be able to have the office perform in a way that was devoted and focused most intently on tenants. And so one of the first things she was able to do, and one of her more significant accomplishments, was to get the agency removed from DCRA and as a standalone agency. As for me, those early days, the Office of the Tenant Advocate was actually me and this guy. And so in those early days, our task was to travel throughout the city, and that's what we did. We didn't have folks necessarily come to the agency. Jose and I would go to meet tenants where they were in their communities, and from time to time, if they had an association, we would attempt to advise them of their rights. Very difficult time back then. There was a lot going on in the city with the buying of tenant buildings, with condominium conversion. There's quite a bit going on that wasn't advantageous for the tenants. But the two of us did what we could. We had numerous meetings with tenant associations and also with the city stakeholders who advocate for tenants. And so it was a very different time, but a very busy time. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to talk about that and to be recognized, really humbled to be recognized for the good work that the Office of the Tenant Advocate did and just for having a small role in helping to get it started. So to Ms. Shreve and the Office of the Tenant Advocate, I hope that you will continue to do the very important work that you do on behalf of the district's tenants. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johanna, for this award. It is so wonderful to see this room filled with people. I was here at the first one, and there wasn't even half a house there as there is now. And thank you all for making the district a better place. I would be remiss if I stood up here, and with all due respect to all of the council people that are here today, I think the spirit of Jim Graham lies over this. I was privileged to watch very closely how hard he worked on a lot of the tennis legislation that is alive and well today. But what I got to tell you before I get down is, Johanna didn't really tell the story like it should be. Tim and I had never met Johanna. We were in a basement at Sacred Hearts Church because Mayor Anthony Williams had said, you will go to this meeting. It was with Washington Interfaith Network. Mayor Williams, Wynn was part of his congregation, so to speak. So he was very concerned that we were proper and we received very specific instructions. You will say this, you will not say that, you will listen to what they say, etc., etc. They had a lawyer in the back taking notes, and to Tim's credit, he tiptoed right through the tulips. He was very careful. He said what the mayor said you can say and not you say. And in the middle of the meeting, this lady walks in that we never met before, and she stands up and she goes, I am about to become the new tenant advocate. And bam, 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 bam. And we looked at each other, we rolled our eyes, and we said, oh my God, this woman is not going to last 3 months in her job. That's how I met Johanna. We have wonderful memories from that time on. She is a wonderful friend, and I love her dearly. Thank you, Office of Tenant Advocate. Thank you, the tenant advocates in this room. God bless you all, and thank you for this award. You're the official photographer? So can I get a photo with her? Tim, you're going to take a photo with Johanna? Can we take a photo with you?
Of course.
We'll let you finish chewing. Yeah, that'd be good.
Well, we're moving into the bewitching hour. You've got about 20 minutes left for your lunch. I encourage everyone to attend an afternoon workshop. As a lot of you who have attended before may remember, it was usually during the lunch hour that we did our raffles, that we gave out our gifts of thanks. We've changed that due to the program today, and so the raffles will occur in the workshops. So hopefully you will attend workshops both from the 1:30 to the 3 o'clock hour, and then come and have some ice cream. Go back into the workshops from 3:15 to 4:30. So there will be 2 sets of raffles done. And we appreciate you. I do ask that all of you do your evaluations. Please give us your evaluations so we know how we did and how we can improve to get better. Again, let me thank you all for being here and for being a part of this function. Again, another successful year. And I look forward to seeing you next year. God bless.
We're here representing you. We on the council represent you, and we have to continue to be on top of things on your behalf. So thank you very much. And I didn't mean to preach to the choir. because I know this is the choir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alyssa Silverman. I'm one of the at-large council members, and I'm a member of the Housing Committee. I want to make a few observations. Number one, the 4 biggest champions of tenants are women, right up here. Sorry, men. The second thing, I guess, since you guys are into applause, is by a show of applause, who thinks the rent is too damn high in D.C.? Okay, I agree. I think we all agree. So here's what we need to do, folks. We need to keep the energy up. Budgets are about priorities. If we're going to put money into things like rent supplement, into our housing production trust fund, into making sure that we can keep this city affordable, we need your help. We're in this together. Yeah, we're in this together. Right? Okay. So you have my commitment, and I know you have the commitment of all the women legislators up here, that we're going to fight to keep D.C. affordable. Thank you all very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mary Che. I represent Ward 3, and I can tell that Alyssa Silverman is in full campaign mode. Yes. In any event, I think she's quite right. You have the 4 women here who are your best friends on the council. And I want to say something about Johanna Shreve, because she expects me to, since I've been saying it for years. She is the gladiator on behalf of tenants. She's the best thing we have for tenants. So let's give her a round of applause. You know, we've been introducing and considering lots of legislation that's vital to the District of Columbia, affordable housing and you know, keeping rents stable. But also there's another aspect of this, and I want to bring it to you, particularly because you're the activists. You know, out of certain of our hearings, out of certain of our consideration of legislation, new ideas emerge. More recently, it came to my attention, and you don't want to get into this position, but if you are, when we have people who face evictions, we have to handle that properly and humanely. If that is what has to happen, first of all, we don't want it to happen, not to ever happen, but it should be treated properly. And on top of that, out of our discussion of that, something occurred to me about evictions. Sometimes if people do suffer an eviction, because that's on their record, so to speak, it makes it awfully hard for them to get another apartment. Yes. So I have an idea, and I'm working with some folks for legislation to seal the record after a time, because you have to be able, even in bankruptcy, you get a fresh start. Even people who are convicted of crimes can have that expunged. Why can't we clear the deck so that people, even if they had to face the unfortunate situation of an eviction, can at some point erase that from the record and be able to rent again?
That's been that suggestion. We already have that suggestion.
From me. But I use that as an example. I use that as an example about how things can arise and how new ideas can come forward. And here's what I tell you, and especially the women that are up here now. You come to us with a good idea, and we'll enact it. Thank you.
That's right. That's very true.
All right, where's my Ward 1 people? Let me hear you, Ward 1. That's right. I'm Brianne Nadeau. I'm the Ward 1 council member. I'm also a member of the Housing Committee and chair of the Human Services Committee. I want to take a moment to congratulate our awardees today. Juanita Mitchell. Juanita, who every time she testifies before the council, moves each and every one of us. She moves us with her words, but also with her deeds, and there is no one more deserving of this honor. Congratulations.
Tim Handy, who reminded me today that I've known him since I was on the ANC and a total pain in his butt. And I think I probably still am. So thank you for putting up with me for more than 10 years now. And of course, Jose Suero, one of my Ward 1 constituents, who gave me quite an education when I first started out in this work, and for that I thank him. Most of the work that I do is focused on preventing homelessness and helping those who have become homeless. And I know you can tell me, how do we do that? How do we prevent homelessness and how do we solve homelessness? With what? With housing. Say it with me, with housing. That's right. Thank you. One more time. With housing. That's right. And whether we are giving OTA the independent authority to go after negligent landlords finally, which we did just a couple years ago, or whether we're putting more than 500 units of affordable housing or preserving affordable housing in Ward 1, we are working to prevent homelessness and to solve homelessness through housing. So thank you, each and every one of you. But of course, this work is about more than the bricks and mortar. Y'all are here today because you have real issues or you know people who do, and you want to help. Many of you have worked and gotten the direct assistance of the Office of the Tenant Advocate or one of the government's community partners, Housing Counseling Services, or LEDC. Those are incredibly important. But it's recently come to my attention that some of those services are at risk. Because as we went through this FY19 budget process, there were cuts to Housing Counseling Service and LEDC, and what that means is some of the programs that you depend on and that people you serve with depend on, like HPAP, ERAP, like IZ certification, those programs are at risk because we may not have enough funding for these organizations in the upcoming budget. So I want you to work with me. Next week, we're going to redouble our efforts and figure out if we can find a way in the new budget that's just about to start to restore that funding, because if we don't, I worry. I worry that people are going to be waiting 3 to 4 months for these services that they desperately need. I worry that counseling for people who are going through TOPA, who are trying to restore their credit, are not going to be able to get it. So stick with me. We're going to be working on this, and if this is something that's of interest to you, please get in touch, because we're going to work on it together. Thank you for all you are doing. Thank you. Thank you for all you are doing. Thank you for showing up today. The knowledge that you have is your power. The knowledge that you share with others is your power. Take it, use it, and hold all of us accountable. Thank you.
For those of you who did not have representation from your council member today, I want to give a shout out to Ward 5. They're in the house. Ward 6, I know you're in the house. Ward 7, are you in the house? And on the stretch, Ward 8, are you in the house? Ward 2, are you in the house? And how about Ward 4, my ward? Thank you all for being here. I'm sure there's a reason we didn't have someone to celebrate with today. It's time to move to the next workshop. It's time to move to the next workshop. I think that the presenters are all ready for them now. So if you don't mind, lunch is over. I hope you enjoyed that good dessert. It's coming. Don't leave without it.